latest augmented reality works at the New York Times, and they will share with us the creative and technical challenges that they encountered in the last 2 years. So please welcome on this online stage Yuliya and Karthik.
Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm Karthik Patanjali.
And I'm Yuliya Parshina-Kottas.
And we work on the immersive storytelling team in the newsroom. We are a part of the team that established immersive storytelling at the Times, and we worked on all the AR coverage so far.
And we're really excited to be here today and to talk to you. We wish it was, in person and we were able to see your faces, but we're so grateful to the organizers to give us the opportunity to be here virtually. And we are very excited to tell you about our work. So we published our first augmented reality story in February of 2018, and it's been a whirlwind since then. We've covered everything from sports, like the 2018 Winter Olympics, to culture, to science, to breaking news, and volumetric video, and we've learned so much from the experience. There's a variety of stories that you can check out or maybe you already have seen, but what we really want to talk to you about today are the three of our latest that we've published in the last 6 months or so, because they're both a really good example of the kind of work we have been doing and the process behind our augmented reality projects, but they also show the way that our thinking is evolving about what augmented reality is and can bring to journalism. And yeah, let's get started.
All right. Thanks, Yuliya. And these are the three most recent pieces that we published that has an AR component to it. So let's dive right in. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is the piece that we did for PM 2.5 air pollution visualization. And as many of you know, PM 2.5 particulate matter is particulate matter that's less than 2.5 micrometers in diameter. So owing to their size, they could potentially enter our bloodstream and wreak havoc to our health. So it's responsible for millions of deaths around the world each year and many more illnesses. And we wanted a way to visualize the urgency of the problem by making these invisible particles visible. So this piece allows the reader to visualize some of the worst air in the world in comparison to the air quality in their own city or town, giving them a more personal and a visceral understanding of the scale of this public health hazard. And this, as you can see, this geolocated data layer on top of the real world that visualizes this damaging but often invisible pollution. And what you see here is that each particle in your space represents 1 microgram of PM 2.5 particles in air. And since the unit itself was spatial, it was like per meter cube, AR was kind of an obvious way to visualize it. And to ensure scientific accuracy, we ran our visualization past a dozen experts who study particulate matter. And we tried everything from, representing it as a haze, but this visualization where it's a simple particle that fills up your room created the best impact and was scientifically accurate. This is the part I was talking about earlier, where this lets you choose a city or select a city where you're located and compare that to the worst affected places in the world. Delhi last November and California wildfire season that visualizes the pollution in California. And this piece also had a very strong print component to it. And in addition to that, you notice the QR tag that lets you directly deep link into the AR experience, connecting print and digital, and in this case, AR. And another thing to note here is this was one of the first pieces in which AR visualization was driven through live data that the reader chooses. That was something unique about this piece, that's adding a data layer into the world. This is in line with many other visualizations that we do as a part of the graphics department in the newsroom. And the second thing that I'm going to talk about is the piece that we did, a very ambitious piece that we did for the Apollo 11 moon landing. So when we started out, Jonathan Coram, our science graphics editor, sifted through a bunch of photography from the mission, and he started arranging them as slides. I mean, multiple people have tried to do panoramas from the pictures, but what he observed was that maintaining the Hasselblad square and adding a time component to visualize it in the way it was taken kind of added another layer to seeing these images. And we wanted to take that to the next level. And we've all seen these pictures over 50 years. These are very popular images, but we wanted to explore if there's a completely new way of looking at them. And that's when we were inspired by this map that you see. That's a 1970s map of the image locations of different photos. This is a rough representation of where the images were taken from. And we wanted to explore if we could actually find the exact spot it was taken from and the angle it was taken from to give a new perspective. And that took us through a rabbit hole of feverishly trying to calculate the exact position and orientation of the camera. It involved the use of the word frustum so many times in the newsroom, and some really hairy grasshopper scripts that you see here. And this kind of led us to, position the camera in an exact spot so that it matches the 3D in the background. And all of this work resulted in something like this with Jonathan's panorama, the time panorama. And you notice that not even one word was written for this. The narrative is moved forward purely by the transcripts of the conversation in the mission. And this again lets you understand the moon photography from a completely different lens. And what was said during those pictures, when those pictures were taken. And finally, the images, as you saw, neatly stitched together to reveal what was it like to look around from there. So this is the AR component. That was a parallel experience to what you see on the web. This lets you move around and match the position to enable the pictures. And it's almost like a game. When you complete it, you can see that in a moment it stitches together and you get a sense of what it looks like in your space. And this was also one of the few times we've tried to do an AR experience that doesn't show your environment, that doesn't show your camera, but just utilizes the spatial tracking ability of AR to visualize the information. We also work with the mill to produce a Quest VR experience that let you stand on the moon, hold the Hasselblad, and take those iconic pictures standing on the lunar surface. For the show that Times put together for the moon anniversary in a big. And this also had a special print component that explains the moon images, where the moon images were taken from. It was amazingly put together by Jonathan Coram. Yuliya.
So the story I'm going to talk about now is actually quite recent. We published it, I believe, 1-2 weeks ago? Time has lost all meaning at this point. But when social distancing became a key element of flattening the curve, we wanted to find a way to explain to our readers what 6 feet actually looks like in your space. It's surprisingly difficult to gauge that when you're on a sidewalk or in a supermarket. And we wanted to give our readers a tool to understand how far they need to stay away from others to protect themselves and those around them. And initially it emerged as just a perfect use case for augmented reality. We thought AR would be a great service tool to put that kind of distance in our reader's space and let them explore their environment with it. But as we started thinking about the story, we realized that in order for us to show how far they need to be from others, we need to explain why. And we started doing a lot of reporting that went on for weeks around what it means when someone coughs or sneezes or even breathes in your space, and how a virus could potentially be transmitted from person to person through those actions. So we were able to get a very interesting data set, a simulation of a cough from a researcher in Japan, and we used that as a visual driver for all the reporting that we've done and all the conversations we've had with numerous experts that specialize in viral transmission and coughing and breathing. And we used that data visualization and that explainer to land you in an augmented reality experience that our readers can then use to explore their space. Now, this is something that is a good example of the way that our thinking is evolving about AR in our storytelling. In the past, we might have chosen to display the entirety of the story, including the simulation, in our reader's space. But we felt from our previous experience of telling these kinds of stories in the last 2 years that it might actually be more informative in a quicker and more impactful way for the readers to see the simulation, to see the explainer of coughing and breathing and viral transmission from third person, removed in a frame, and then to only use augmented reality for something that is the strongest use case, which is visualizing scale, visualizing distance in a spatial way. So that we felt we're using these two different platforms to the utmost strengths of each. The additional bonus was, and Karthik, if you could go back to that video in the supermarket, the thing we've discovered about the AR portion of it is not only were we able to inform our readers about what this distance means in their life, but we were actually able to use it for our own reporting. Because by shooting this promo video that you see here, we realized how difficult it actually is to distance in an urban environment, whether you're on a New York City sidewalk or in a supermarket. It just gave us as storytellers a new perspective about the reality of life. And this also had a strong print component. And the reason why Karthik and I keep bringing up the print portions of these pieces is that this distinguishes the way that we used to think about AR from what we're trying to do now. In the past, AR stories have felt really isolated. They were really treated as these very special kinds of narratives that we present to our readers that were digital and gave you this kind of very high-tech experience. Whereas now we're trying to find a way to integrate it into other kinds of platforms and storytelling, so everything feels like a cohesive narrative. So that when we show something as a more linear or an interactive web experience, in WebGL, that guides the user, it can transition more naturally into AR and can coexist very naturally with print as well. Now, this is a list of principles or of kind of guides that we've used to choose our AR stories in the past. And the order in which you see them now is the way that we went into AR storytelling in 2018 and 2019. So some of the 5 guiding elements of a story that made us choose it to make into AR experience have been, the ability to display a subject in its entirety spatially, explaining scale, height, speed, and distance better, trying to convey a topic in a more visceral and more emotional manner, and a more intuitive interaction in space with 3D data, and just being able to break the frame and show something that has high density of information in a more detailed way, rather than trying to squeeze it into a small frame. And I think what we've learned over the last 2 years is that there's 2 pieces of this that really make more sense, and that's what's helping us choose the stories now, and that is explaining scale, height, speed, distance, and other spatial components of something, and just the visceral and emotional connection. I feel like those have evolved to be the most important ways that we choose stories in AR.
Yeah, so this kind of, based on what Yuliya was talking about, this kind of shows how our design of our AR component has evolved as our storytelling evolved. When we started choosing more of a complementary experience than a parallel experience that you see on the web and AR. So first, when it was mostly object-based experiences, we used to lock you into AR and you can see it. And later it kind of evolved into a window into the world where you can project the AR component. You're still free to scroll around. If you're not in a position to do AR, you can scroll away. But once it's become a completely parallel, a complementary experience to what you see on the web, it's like you get 80 to 90% of what you need to absorb in web, but you get that little additional information or a little additional experience in augmented reality. And this is what you see here. And yeah, these are a few of the things that we had worked on in 2018 that we're pretty proud of. This is what we opened with that Yuliya was talking about, the Winter Olympics coverage. And this is a Thai cave AR piece that lets you visualize the claustrophobia of what they went through when they were trying to do this rescue. And this is a piece that we did that actually won an Emmy recently that visualizes the visual evidence that was collected to disprove Assad's claim that it was actually planted, but it proved that it was dropped from the air. And finally, Ashley Graham's volumetric video piece that, that's about body positivity that let you see her in your space doing this. We published this for the New York Fashion Week. And if you want to check out more, please visit nytimes.com/AR. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. Thank you for hearing us talk. Thank you to the organizers for letting this happen, to Kevin for recording us and being so gracious about it. And we can't wait to see you in person and to shake hands and give hugs as soon as it's possible. Stay safe and healthy.
And we're happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you very much for this wonderful present. Thank you, Yuliya. Thank you, Karthik. And that was amazing. I didn't know about these apps, and we have some questions from our audience for you. So maybe in the meantime you already answered some of these, but what are the names, the exact names of these apps? Christopher is asking.
They are a part of our core New York Times app. They are fully integrated into our regular articles. If you go to the New York Times app and find the Immersive tab, you will be able to browse all the AR stories and they'll just read like a regular article.
Great. So go to the main container of these experiences. Then, okay, Tracy is pointing that these ideas were first explored by the American Film Institute, by the History Channel in their enhanced TV lab in the early 2000s. Did you know about these experimentations?
I have not seen their work, so I would love to actually take a look. That sounds fascinating.
No, but I can assure you that these kind of convergences happen all the time when dealing with, I don't know, cultural heritage, history or these kind of topics. Then Lisa is asking, what are you using as your primary tool for the web experiences? But I think you already answered.
We're using Three.js for rendering 3D on the web. And for building it, we use everything from Maya to Rhinoceros to other things to produce this.
Okay, just I'm sure that we have other questions, but unfortunately we are out of time. So I invite the people from the audience to get in touch with our speakers and talk with them in person, because we are having this edition online, but we still promote networking among professionals. So thank you very much for your contribution, and bye. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. Bye.